Not quite, Moby. Ellis Island is in the bay between New York City and Jersey City, which is in New Jersey. An immigrant is a person who moves to a new country. Many immigrants pass through Ellis Island when they move to the United States. What happened on Ellis Island? During the 1800s, millions of immigrants moved to the United States to start new lives and have opportunities. Often, they spent their life savings in order to move. Men usually made the journey first. After they saved up enough money, they brought their wives and children over. A lot of families were separated for years. In 1892, the government built a station on what is now called Ellis Island to check people who wanted to move to the country. Each day, hundreds or even thousands of people would arrive by boat. Many people had to wait in long lines to pass through Ellis Island. They could only bring a few bags, so immigrants left most of their things behind and came to America with very little. Most were from Europe, and they spoke different languages. Immigration officials looked over people's records and asked questions. A translator is a person who changes one language to another. Officials often used translators to communicate. They made sure that immigrants had a place to stay when they moved and enough money to get settled in their new country. Doctors gave quick health exams to everyone who passed through Ellis Island. They looked for diseases and other health problems and checked for lice. They wanted to prevent the spread of illnesses and make sure people were healthy enough to work. In many cases, people who were sick got sent to the hospital on Ellis Island and treated. Passing through Ellis Island could take hours and hours. Wealthier people who were in good health could enter the country right away. Officials thought they would be less likely to commit crimes or cause problems. But most people were worried they wouldn't be let into the country. If someone seemed like he wouldn't be able to get a job, then he might not be allowed to move. Overall, millions of immigrants passed through Ellis Island. It was known as the Gateway to America. To most immigrants, it was also known as the Island of Hope, because this is where they started their new lives. But to some immigrants, it was known as the Island of Tears, because they were not allowed to move. Over 12 million people passed through Ellis Island. Only 2% were not allowed to move. So most were able to start new lives in a new country. Good question, Moby. What was life like for immigrants? Finding jobs was hard for some immigrants. Many faced discrimination or were mistreated just because of their religion. Some people thought immigrants were taking jobs away from people who were born in America. But immigrants played important roles in the growth of the United States. In the 1900s, the government started limiting the number of people who could move into the country. In 1954, Ellis Island's immigration station closed. Later, it opened as a museum. An ancestor is a family member from the past. Today, over 100 million Americans can trace their ancestors back to Ellis Island. Who are some of your ancestors, Moby?